And let's take, if you don't mind, a short trip down memory lane. We're in early 1932. 12 million people are out of work. 20,000 companies already went bankrupt. And in 1 year's time, 23,000 people committed suicide, the highest number ever recorded. Things were about at their worst. And yet, this was the time chosen by US President Herbert Hoover to say a couple of words that echoed through the ages. Prosperity, he said, is just around the corner. Prosperity, ladies and gentlemen, seemed to be the obvious outcome for what doesn't kill you, the economic slump, only makes you stronger. How funny when you know, thank you, how funny when you know that these words came from the mouth of an engineer, an improvised president who thought he understood economics better than the economists themselves. If the facts don't fit the theory, change the theory, goes the old adage. But why bother? The government here seems to find it much easier to keep the theory and simply change the facts. Let's fast forward a bit. We're in early February 2010, and the Troika, you know the Troika, the infamous Troika, is preparing a miracle recipe. Glamorously calling the austerity package for Greece's sovereign debt crisis, consisting of what? The usual. No pain, no gain. I could even hear Angela Merkel's voice saying to the Greek Prime Minister, "Oh, you know, Mr. Papandreou, what doesn't kill you only makes you stärker."
Could you please remind us of the background of Madame Merkel? Isn't she a scientist?
Here.
Absolutely, she's not an economist. Ladies and gentlemen, the Greeks are now as well off as they were back in 1995. 2 decades of development burned to ashes.
One bit information?
Yes.
Would you say that you had enough time to judge well the current situation of Greece?
As Keynes put it, Mr. Prime Minister, in the long run, we're all dead. Those facts keep staring them in the face. No, thank you. The members of the government continue to deny reality on a macro perspective. What doesn't kill you only makes you weaker, poorer, and prone to political instability. A motion suggesting that suffering equals progress is not progressive, but regressive. A poisonous idea where to advance is to push ourselves to the point of death. It leads to a world that only values strength, domination, competition. Individual versus individual, community versus community, state versus state. A world which is less stable, less sound, and less secure.
Information.
Yes, please.
Wouldn't you say that competition is better than cooperation?
Sorry?
Wouldn't you say that competition is better than cooperation as
Cooperation.
economical example?
I'm going to talk about just now. Now, exactly. That's the point I wanted to make. I know we have a reputation at HEC of forming, well, fierce and ruthless money makers. But while we recognize that moderate and regulated competition is good, we believe that ruthless and wild competition, like the one that the government wants us to embrace, will lead the world into a downward spiral that only knows loser. No, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, remember the fate of late Pierre Vautier, former CFO of the Zurich Insurance Group and HEC alumni, who committed suicide 2 years ago, leaving a wife and 2 kids behind, blaming the unbearable working environment and the extreme pressure he was facing. Remember the 60 France Telecom employees who took their own lives. What goes around comes around. Ruthless competition itself might not kill you, but it will push you to the edge and make you take the last step yourself. Most importantly, the motion and the government that's defending it seem to ignore that there are other ways of getting strong than being pushed to the limit. As the beautiful Cecilia has already told us, ladies and gentlemen, cooperation, teamwork, love, caring, understanding, these are the things that really nurture your strength, toughen you up, and fortify your capacity to adapt to hardships. For all these reasons, and because we cannot ignore suffering, I beg you, ladies and gentlemen, to reject the motion. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we now move to the final 2 speakers, official speakers, after which you will have the floor. I call upon the whip of the government, Mr. Christophe Zang.
Thank
Thank you, Chairman Mahawani. Most exquisite and elegant bell girl. Distinguished members of the jury. Fellow members of the government. Estimable colleagues of the opposition. Ladies and gentlemen. There are some moments in life when events, as they unfold, shed new light on notions that have become ordinary to us. And tonight is one of these moments. You all know the story of the glass of water. That glass which, after a life of dishwashers, of dents and thermic shocks, came to stand on a table with some water in it. And now you all know how this goes. You all know what the optimist said, that the glass is half full. And you all know what the pessimist said, that the glass is half empty. And some of you may know what the realist says, that the glass contains half the amount required to make it overflow. And some of you yet may know what the cynic says, that he wonders who drank the other half. But, ladies and gentlemen, heed what the Buddhist has to say. It matters not whether the glass is half empty or half full, for it is already scratched and chipped. The question is, does it want to be filled again? And that's exactly the point today, ladies and gentlemen. We all know what glasses go through, just as we know that everybody hurts sometimes. But how and where this glass will go from there, that is the question. And has anyone asked how the glass feels? Well, not the opposition at any rate, ladies and gentlemen. Hiding behind problems they have nor the courage, nor the ability to solve. Miss Pereira thinks she can impress us with all the problems in the world, with her incredible knowledge of real life. But what has she really understood if she thinks that hope should be given up just because some of her hopes don't come true? What is hope for? What is hope meant for?
Information?
No, thank you. How can we act to solve problems if we have no hope? As Hickson said, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And Miss Cairns, you seem to have a liking for quotes. So let me reply with the words of Shakespeare himself. If you can look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me. And faced with the uncertainty of time, where the opposition seems to have given up, we only surrender to the problems at hand. Problems like your Uncle Mike, which you dragged hurtlessly into this debate like a gruesome exhibit. Mr. Stein, you say that our point is only death weakens us, when we basically said, all along, that acknowledging our weaknesses is part of what strengthens us. And Mr. Stein proceeded to label us as individualists when we spoke of peoples, of nations, of solidarity. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, there are some obstacles that may seem impossible to overcome. And it may well be that some of them are. But is it with the government's timorous attitude that we're going to find out? As our beloved Prime Minister said an hour ago, tonight was not about prattling on and on about this famous saying that what doesn't kill us makes you stronger. We broadened the perspective of this all too popular sentence. And we defended a stance, nay, an attitude, a way of life, of optimism and hope. And more than that, as we took the floor tonight, we paid a tribute to resilience and adaptation.
Here, here.
Of man as an individual, as my colleague Guillaume said, of nations and people as they are able to cohere even under the strongest of pressures, the direst of circumstances, as my colleague Grégoire said. And finally, of life itself. Yes, please?
Should we really be lifting people's hopes up if it's not even going to be achieved?
Well, that's exactly what I said. What is hope for?
Why hope when it can just lead straight to order?
I think I've answered your question, Ms. Cairns.
Here.
As I said, life finds a way. And yes, there are those who say that we should give up all hope and that life is a trajectory of decay and death. But as time moves on, don't these trajectories shoot higher? Don't they last longer? And man has benefited from the example. For it is in the darkest hour, in deepest despair, at the bottom of the chasm, when all hope seems lost, that we sometimes find the resources in us to rise again from our ashes. No thank you.
Here.
For in every loss, there's something to be gained, just as in every victory, there's something to be lost. And here we stand, and here you sit, all of you, with the experience, the pains and joys of 20-some years of existence. Here we are, members of a nation, weakened, yes, but ultimately strengthened by centuries of history. And here we stand at last, members of a species, the product of thousands of years of evolution. Our message tonight was not one of recklessness or hubris, but rather humility, admiration, and hope. Admiration for what has been done by the millions that came before us. Hope for the unborn millions to come and what they might achieve. And finally, humility, because in all that we've said, we believe time and work to be paramount. And acknowledging that you have been weakened is a necessary step, yes, but only the first of many in this long process that leads to becoming stronger.
Here.
So ladies and gentlemen, as I'm loath to leave you with the lyrics of a Kelly Clarkson song, I will say this to you. Work is never over. And heed these 4 words. Harder, better, faster, and stronger!
Much, Mr. Speaker. I now call upon the final official speaker of this evening's debate, the whip from the opposition side, Mr. Mathieu Polytechnique.
Mr. Chairman, beautiful timekeeper, honourable jury, misguided audience, respected members of the opposition. Wonderful opposition, good evening. I am here to finish this debate. I have the ominous task of calling the end to the party, of drawing you out of the government's matrix and bring you all back to the hard, painful reality of suffering and weakness. And for that, I'd like to apologise. What this debate and my wonderful comrades of the opposition have clearly shown is that this motion that the government is defending here is a nice mantra. It has a nice string to it. It's a good, catchy slogan. And we at HEC know about those. But it can't be more than this. We can't use it as a life motto like the government wants us to. We can't buy into it. It has too many flaws. It is too dangerous and untrue. And this is what the opposition has brilliantly demonstrated tonight. This debate has been about 3 main themes, which the government has unfortunately wrongly identified, so that once again you're deceived into thinking this motion is good for you. The first point of clash has been the idea of suffering, of death. What doesn't kill you? The government has told us that it always makes us stronger, then acknowledged that it deeply hurts without killing us, so they've agreed on this point. They have talked about wars, cancer, but apart from that they've told mostly feeling good phrases, ignoring suffering and concreteness, and they've told us to wait time, to wait and wait and wait. So apparently, what doesn't kill you doesn't only make you stronger, it also makes you patient.
So, would you say to the woman who's lost its child yesterday?
I am talking about this in 5 seconds.
Would you say it? Would you say to her, then are you feeling stronger now?
No, I'm going to tell her that it might be better, but it has nothing to do with her strength. Shame. The opposition has the upper hand. Cecilia has shown you how unbelievably personal suffering is, and how difficult, impossible it is to consider one's pain when you're not wearing their shoes. Who are we to patronise someone who's lost everything when we're not in their position? How could we accept to be put in the position of going up to a widow or a mother who's lost her child at the funeral, pat them on the shoulder and tell them, "Cheer up, love, you're getting strong here." This is what this motion underlines. What doesn't kill you doesn't only make you stronger, it makes you an insensitive bigot. Furthermore, what Jeremy and Cecilia have also told you is that being the survivor is not all fun and games. It first involves suffering, hiding, getting weaker. Survivor doesn't always get the eye of the tiger. Sometimes surviving can be worse than death. There are subtle, delicate ways of torturing people without killing them. And surviving can be pure purgatory. You should ask the people Jeremy keeps in his basement. Yes?
Personal suffering.
I don't have any, but because I'm at HEC, but maybe you could. The second point what does it mean to be strong? Who are those strong? The government has shunned out physical strength, then they have given us an entire biology lecture. About the mechanisms of the body.
A bit of information.
Yes, ma'am.
You say you have no suffering, then how could you be better than us at understanding people who suffer?
I'm not saying I'm better at understanding them, I'm just saying that you didn't even try to.
Shame!
In her peculiar language of hers, I've shown you is that this vision of strength, this mantra that every experience, however painful or terrible or hard, is always adequate strength, is only written by the strong, by the winners, by the 1%. But it's forgetting Uncle Mike. It's written by you, Polytechnique, the strong, the elite, the Übermenschen.
Shame.
Now don't rush from that.
Point of order.
I have a point of order.
Isn't that a personal ad hominem attack?
Ad homines, perhaps, rather than but I think that the members of the jury will take into account whether they consider that to be an attack or not. So,
Thank you, Mr.
Speaker.
So the one that don't grow stronger and dehumanized by such a statement, like that homeless guy you try so hard not to look at when he's asking you for change. Social Darwinism and self-fulfilling prophecies is what they're offering us here, and this is what the opposition has so brilliantly explained. And finally, the third point of clash, well, of course, what believing in this motion really leads to. The government has told you that it's an amazing also. Yes, please.
Could you repeat, please, because I didn't understand why you are against social Darwinism.
Why am I against social
Yeah,
Darwinism?
you quoted it.
You think it leads to suffering, which you didn't tell you
Shame.
we have social.
Shame!
Right, so the government has told you that it's an amazing all-solving sentence, that we should all buy into it, that having faith, no thank you, but in this wonderful statement will bring out the best in all people, will make us make sense of life. They've told us that it would fill our glasses, and there were many steps for that to happen. Well, alright, Odok's suggestion is great. Stepping into ice cold water mumbling that it's warm, it's warm, it's warm is probably a good strategy indeed. But what the proposition is doing here is stepping into the waters of this Egyptian great river, denial. Because here again, Paul has demonstrated how unbelievably dangerous and slippery it would be to believe in such an all-encompassing absolute motion. If what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, what is left? All that is left is competition. It's kill or be killed. It's Darwinism. It's the Hunger Games.
Shame!
Of course, some challenges are good, and Jeremy has told you that. But as Richard Dawkins suggests, the thing that separates man from the beast is our ability to care for those that need most. And you would have us all reduced to predators, animals, and we suggest following the human approach, because blood is a dangerous beverage to put in our glasses. So we can't possibly agree with this motion. The position of the government is untenable. This motion drapes us in the veil of denial. It gives us beer goggles when we see the fittest, the good side. And if you drink too much of it and manage to survive, just like alcohol, it doesn't make you stronger. It only makes you hammered. And this is why we would be the much-needed hangover and tell you to open your eyes, don't listen to the counterproductive and dangerous litany of the government, and please, we beg you, reject this motion.
Thank you very much to the final speaker, final official speaker. I would now ask the members of the jury to retire. Could I ask Etienne perhaps just to take the jury members into salle 57, which is very, I think you know where it is. I've left the door open and the lights are on. There is a bottle of water and some glasses for your jury members. Please give the jury members some applause. Order, please.
Bravo, bravo.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the House, whilst the jury is away, we will throw the motion open to the House. During this period, you may ask questions to either of the two teams. You may make a statement for the motion, against the motion, or alternatively, purely and simply on the motion. You may tell a joke. You may come to the front and sing a song. You may dance on the table. In other words, I'd like to try and fill in the next 20 minutes. So, is there anyone? Just be very careful about raising your hand scratching your head because or waving to someone in the front row, because that may be taken as a sign that you want to speak, which may not necessarily be the case for the young lady at the back who was waving to this stuff. Yeah, but there we go. So, are there any members of the House who would like to intervene and to make their voice heard? Right, here we go. Yes!
I am with the government's definition of the word only as. You have 26 definitions in the dictionary, apparently, but which one were you arguing for today?
Oh, only, like I said, as simply or ultimately.
It's not the same.
Ultimately.
That's two different, like, words.
Okay, but alright, so we have an answer to your question, we have a supplementary, yes please.
Oh yeah, simply and what was the other? Ultimately, they're two different like definitions.
To me, in this sentence, the only is only a logical link between the two parts. It's not restrictive, like you're trying to point out.
Okay, would you like to come back on that yourself?
It's the action that doesn't kill you. That is the one thing that makes you stronger.
No, I mean, it simply makes you stronger. I mean, it's a logical consequence. That's what
It's a logical consequence. But it's not the only factor. No.
Yeah.
It's not the
It is
only
the only
thing.
factor.
It's not the only thing that happens to you. It's not the only thing that happens to you.
Okay.
We have several English teachers in the house. Perhaps one or two of them might like to shed some light on the actual grammatical meaning of this. I'm sorry, dear colleagues, but anyone like to say something about the precisely the meaning of this word only?
It's a translation to the German, isn't it?
Okay, perhaps someone from the government side would like to explain that particular one. Yes, perhaps Mark with his absolutely superb German. But he doesn't speak a word of German, by the way.
Yes, I do.
Es tut mir leid.
Was mich nicht umbringt, macht mich stärker. So that's the German sentence.
There's no word only. Sorry?
There's no word only.
No, absolutely.
There is no word only. But why did I quote that? Sorry?
I mean, you're not fighting anymore, so you
Oh,
can
no,
just
no,
No, it's not the right sentence. Of course it's not, but we wished to quote it because it's inspired by this quotation. We just couldn't forget it. And what was interesting about this quotation was that me becoming you. As for the only, we of course had to add it. Sorry, so it's not in the original German quotation. Does it answer to the question already?
I may actually give an explanation from an institutional point of view. Institutional being the French Debating Association. I don't think there are any other coaches in the room. Gavin has left, unfortunately, but he will back me up on this. Because people often ask how we decide on the motions. What actually happens is this. Each coach of each of the 20 schools and universities involved in the tournament sends in to our Secretaries General 5 motions. They gather them together, and then they send them back out to the 20 coaches who vote on their top 5. Then we meet, and this is the interesting part, then we meet in a Parisian restaurant. In a closed room downstairs. It is total. You can bribe me as much as you want, you're never going to know.